321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green, right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
Hello everyone, my name is Yasser Bashir and I welcome you to another episode of Bridges on Odds TV. Today we have a very special episode because we will be talking about motor vehicle crashes which you may have been involved in or you may have seen a motor vehicle crash at least one time in your life. So what we're going to do is basically we're going to talk about why do motor vehicle crashes occur, what are likelihood of you becoming a victim of a motor vehicle crash. In addition to that, what if you're involved in a crash, what steps do you need to do from keeping yourself or somebody else safe. So before we start, I have a short video which we'll watch momentarily, but before I do that, I'm just going to introduce a very special guest, Lieutenant Terry Horn with Houston Police Department. So how are you doing today?
Well, thank you, Commander, and it's my pleasure to be here as a guest, and I'm looking forward to this discussion about crashes today.
All right, so can you just briefly give an overview of your experience and your knowledge about motor vehicle crashes or any other experience that you have so that viewers can benefit from your expertise?
Well, most definitely, Commander. As you know, I've been on the department 28 years, excuse me.
You don't even know how long you've been on?
Well, it kind of goes by, it gets kind of cloudy after 20 years. So 28 years. So during that course of that 28 years, obviously I've encountered a lot of different crashes. But I had the pleasure also working in, with the time it was called Accident Division, Traffic and Accident. But you worked there also, but now it's called Vehicular Crimes Division. Yes. So I had the experience of working there. So I've seen my fair share throughout the course of my 28 years history.
Good, great deal. So before we get into motor vehicle crashes, let's have the viewers watch a brief video about how motor vehicle crashes occur.
Подъезжай. Ja pierdolę. Weź kurwa.
У меня сейчас все зафиксировал этот. Пиздец. Какой скоростью он летел.
Пиздец нахуй.
Welcome back, viewers. As you saw the video, some of those were very interesting crashes. But if you start looking at those incidents, there's something you can obviously observe, that some of those crashes could have been avoided. For example, some of those crashes occurred because somebody was speeding, somebody was distracted, somebody failed to right away, didn't look around before making a left turn or a right turn. And the one that I found very interesting with that loose tire just came out of nowhere and hit that motorist. So there are many reasons why motor vehicle crashes occur, and that's something that we are going to continue to talk about in today's episode. But there is something I want to tell everybody is, as far as my career concerned, half of my career I spent investigating motor vehicle crashes because I was in a vehicle crime division. While I was there, I investigated hundreds of crashes, motor vehicle fatalities, where I have seen victims die from ages 2 all the way to an elderly person. I have seen young people pass away because they didn't have the seatbelt on. And I just had I really had a compassion for the victim, and also had passion for doing these kind of investigations.
If I could, Commander, that's one of the things that, and this is what we're going to discuss, did you know that that's one of the top deaths worldwide is ages between 15 and 29.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. And then the second for ages is a 5 to 14.
I mean, as a young parent, when your child turns 16, what is one thing you worry about is him or her getting a driver's license. Right. As a parent, you always feel at unease when your child gets behind the wheel, because you always worry, is my son is going to speed? Because that's one of the natural things. You get a brand new car or used car, and you're not familiar with the vehicle. You want to drive fast, show off, and do all this weird stuff. And at the same time, it's not healthy to do that. So that's something we're going to talk about. There's something else I want to mention. Throughout my career, when I was a vehicle crime crash investigator, I have seen teenagers just speeding down the roadway, showing off, and lose control and hit a tree and pass away. I have seen a 2-year-old child playing in the parking lot, and here comes a car and hit the child, and the child passed away. I have seen also an incident where a mom was in an apartment parking lot allowing her child to ride a bicycle in the apartment parking lot, and a car came across the corner and hit the child, and the child passed away as well. So this is the reason why I'm glad that we are doing this, so that way we can educate the viewers that just because you see a minor bumper-to-bumper accident, nothing happened, well, something could have happened, and how to prevent that from occurring, or prevent that from happening. So let's do this first. Let's look at the overall stats, because I like stats because they give us a picture of what is the likelihood of you being involved in a crash. Let me ask the question, why are we not using the word accident, we're using the word crash?
Well, that's funny you mentioned that. I guess because the history through the police department, when we both came on, they were known as accidents. And now we termed and coined it to crashes. However, most people kind of familiarize themselves and acquaint an actual crash as an accident. And as we all know, accidents are avoidable, so it's really not an accident, right?
So you said accidents are what?
Crashes.
Avoidable. Well, crash means, my understanding was that accidents are not preventable, and they're avoidable, and they're not avoidable. So preventable. So if somebody's speeding, can you anticipate that person is going to lose control and hit a car or hit somebody else?
Well, that's a good point, because statistically, speeding is one of the top 3 reasons why people get in crashes. So
if you can anticipate that drinking and driving, somebody's going to get into a crash, that means it's not an accident. That means it's a crash, which means that it's punishable, that you can get a citation or be punished for it. So let's talk about some stats. So let's talk about nationally of how many crashes we have, what a likelihood of being involved, somebody being involved in a crash, and anything else that you want to share with us.
No, most definitely. Yeah, if I could, I'd like to reiterate with the public and let them know how critical these crashes are and how it impacts even at a global level. There are at least 3 million on average deaths related to crashes worldwide, which averages out to approximately a little over 3,000 a day. That's pretty serious, in my opinion. And if you relate that. I wanted to relate to the viewers so they could kind of relate to this. That's twice the combined amount of the total deaths in 2017. I did the research of people that died of influenza and HIV. So that's that's really
that's a significant amount of number.
That's a lot of people.
Now, since you mentioned about worldwide stats, I do know because I have traveled the world. Some of those drivers in other countries, they do not have strict laws like we do.
That's correct.
And they're very relaxed on wearing seatbelts. And over the years, when I was a crash investigator, and I also was a lieutenant in vehicle crimes where I oversaw crash investigation and fatalities, as many times I came across a case or I investigated or I reviewed it where if the person just had a seatbelt, his life could have been saved.
Oh, definitely.
So please keep your those seatbelts on.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's talk about, okay, this is something we talk about worldwide. A lot of it also has to do with the culture too. Because if you have a very relaxed safety culture, for example, I know I've seen it overseas, you see a mother without a seatbelt holding her son in the front seat. In the U.S., that's against the law, and you will be cited for it because we have very strict child safety seat laws, seatbelt laws.
Well, so since you're talking about seatbelts, if 45% of deaths are caused for people not wearing their seatbelt.
That's significant.
Our audience should realize how important it is to wear your seatbelt, and 50% it causes that don't wear their seatbelt and an injury. So it doesn't prevent the crashes or the accidents. However, it definitely saves lives. Yes, you are correct, Commander. You need to reiterate that to our public and our audience how important it is to wear your safety.
So let's talk about in the United States. How many crashes do we have? What kind of impact do crashes have on the roadways and our lives? Oh,
definitely. Nationally, there's 6 million crashes that occur within the U.S. And if you think about that, that is a very significant number. And if you want to look at the total of fatalities, we're talking 40,000 a year. So that averages out to over about 100 a day per day. So crashes they impact all of us, and economically too. I mean,
how's that?
Well, economically, you figure everybody, they wonder why their insurance goes up. Okay, well, the substantial amount of crashes that occur annually causes your insurance to go up, and we'll get into that, I think, because we're going to discuss about Harris County, how many accidents occur in Harris County.
And the other thing is since you talk about crashes, because they also cause traffic delays. Now people are getting to work late, and sometimes they make close the road, and then it causes more, I guess, impact commerce as well. So we'll talk about that some more. What about in Houston, Texas, and specifically Houston? Well, how many crashes do we have here?
As you can imagine, Texas is one of the larger states, right? And we're in the top number of fatalities. One person is killed on average every 2 hours due to
in Texas.
Yes, sir. In Texas alone. So obviously our state is very critical, and then Harris County holds the highest amount of fatalities with 455. So then people wonder why their insurance rates are so high as compared to Fort Bend that only has 242 fatalities. As compared to let me correct that. They only had a total of 39 fatalities.
39?
Yeah, 39. Houston had 242. So so I want to make sure our audience gets that right. So that's now you can wonder why your insurance rates are so high in Harris County is because there's so many fatalities.
And the other issue that we have is also, I mean, it has to do with the crashes, but we also have uninsured motorists.
Correct.
Those individuals who are out there driving without insurance, now that put more pressure on you to pay more to get uninsured motorist policy, insurance covered under your policy as well.
Oh yeah, the economic impact that it has on us, on average, is $230 billion.
Wow.
So you break that down, and that impacts each individual person around $820.
Wow.
For accidents.
Because those crashes actually have impact on the medical profession.
Correct.
Because now somebody's gonna have to pay the bills, and what about all the damage they cause in crashes? For example, I've seen cars run into houses, run into poles, and all somebody's gonna have to pay for all that. So things like that also adds up the economic cost when it comes to crashes.
And don't forget the lawsuits too. People,
Oh, yeah,
you got
lawsuits,
litigation, yeah, your attorney fees. So, I mean, it goes up, and the more crashes in the area cause your insurance to go up. So that's why it's real important, and hopefully your audience today will learn ways to prevent these crashes and avoid these crashes, and understand the magnitude of.
So before we go, we are going to take a short break in a few minutes, but I do want to explain when I went through my crash school, which was offered through Northwestern University. What we learned was that crashes occur for three primary reasons. They're either caused by environment, that could be the weather, or second is mechanical issues, such as the vehicle has some kind of brake issues, or as we saw in our video, a tire just came loose. But the third most likely reason why the crashes occur is because of human error, human judgment. The human being or the person behind the wheel did something to cause that crash. Okay, so that's something we're gonna expand on after we take a short break. Is what are those reasons that the human beings, what judgment, what poor decision they make, that causes the crash to occur, and that's something we're gonna expand on that after we take a short break.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green, right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green, right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
Welcome back, viewers. We will continue our episode about motor vehicle crashes. So before the break, I was talking about the most common reasons, or the reasons why crashes do occur, as I mentioned, by human errors. And now we're going to expand on that. What are those errors? What are the decisions that the driver made that led him or her to cause a crash? But before we do that, why don't we just talk about the three leading reasons of fatalities? So let's talk about that first before we go into something else.
Well, that's a good point, Commander, because the things that you're saying actually relates to what the three highest reasons for the fatalities are. And number one would be reckless driving. That attributes to 33% of total fatalities. And reckless driving would be anything from speeding, like you mentioned, would be anything from running a red light. It could be driving recklessly through traffic and sporadically. If anything of that sort. The next one would be alcohol, which attributes to 40%. Okay, so we all know that impaired driving, is terrible, and it causes many accidents.
So I'm going to go a little bit off the topic because it's not just alcohol. It's also, like as you mentioned, impaired driving. That means you could be that the person was also. You can be impaired on medicine or other drugs besides just alcohol. It could be marijuana, cocaine, narcotic, other type of narcotics.
Even prescribed medication too.
So that's why the doctor always mentioned do not operate machinery or motor vehicle if you are taking this medication, because the side effects can last for hours and hours. Even though you may feel normal, but the side effects are still there.
Right.
So that's something we just want to mention to our viewers as well. Is if you do take medication, please be mindful that not to operate a motor vehicle. So alcohol, I want to expand on that. Okay. So that's significant amount. 40% of the death are related to motor vehicle fatalities. Are 40%. That's almost a half. It's almost like flipping a coin. That your chances that if you get into a crash, that the other person is going to be impaired.
Oh, definitely. Well, statistically, 30 people die on average a day from DWI. So it's very impactful.
Now,
very impactful.
When I was a crash investigator, and I just want to mention a couple of stories to the viewers, is that these DWI crashes are not to be taken lightly. I mean, it takes a toll on the officers as well as the other citizens. For example, I have seen I clearly remember one incident where this one intoxicated driver, he ran into back of a family, and he killed the mom and he killed the daughter, and she was also pregnant, and I had to go testify on that incident. Another incident I remember was, I will not forget it. It seemed like still like yesterday, where this one drunk driver, he ran into a back of another vehicle, and the vehicle got caught on fire, and the whole family burned to death. And you know what the irony was? That this crash, you know where it happened? Right across from a beer company.
No.
Right across from it, and it was such an ironic, because here, I mean, you know, it's okay to drink, but you should also be responsible if you are behind a motor vehicle. So it's not a crime to drink, okay?
Correct.
But it is a crime for you to drink and drive or be impaired when you're driving a motor vehicle.
Yeah, when there's
That's very sad.
Well, it definitely, especially with all the options these days that you could take to avoid. If you do go out and you do have a few drinks, and we all know the state of Texas at 0.8, you know, is illegal. Anything above that. So, if you do feel that you need, you know, someone to take you home, or you're impaired, you know, there's Uber, there's Lyft, there's designated drivers. There's a lot of options that you can take, you know, to prevent this from happening these days. So.
There is no excuse for drinking and driving these days, because now these days you have so many different options of getting home. Actually, some companies, they offer free rides for you to go home if you need one, if you had been drinking. But nonetheless, let's talk about, instead of talking about fatalities, let's talk about what are different ways that people get involved in motor vehicle crashes.
Well, that's a good question. Well, believe it or not, one of them is drunk driving, though. So we talked about that, and we already mentioned basically how prevalent it is. So, you know, basically every 48 minutes someone's getting involved in a DWI.
You know what? I'm going to mention this to the viewers: is how do you, if you're on the freeway, how can you determine, or how can you see if somebody's impaired or not? What are some of the signs you can look for? Now, here's some of the signs you can look for. One is if the person is driving very slow. Because what happens when somebody's impaired, they cannot do multiple tasks at one time. They can only do one or the other. So when they're driving very slow on the freeway, it's because their central nervous system is depressed. Their responses are very slow. They cannot articulate all the information simultaneously. The other thing you may observe is them weaving in and out of multiple lanes, or even two lanes. You see them driving like this. The other thing you may see them is very common is they run red lights or stop sign. Why do they do that? Because their reaction and the perception time is very slow. Because whenever they see a light turn yellow, the information go to their brain, and now it's very slow. So by the time the drivers put their foot on the brake, they already went through the intersection and caused the crash. So make sure if you do see something like that on the freeway, someone's driving very slowly or weaving in and out, please call the police. That way our officers can get that person off the road.
And not to make light of this, but of course if they're drinking a beverage too, you know, and they're driving, and actually when they drive slower than the speed limit too, I don't know if you mentioned that, but they'll try to drive slower thinking that they're trying to prevent an accident, they're driving really cautious.
And the other one, sometimes we do get this, is that they drive on the wrong way on the freeway. For example, they're traveling northbound on the southbound lanes. And I have seen it where they have actually end up causing a head-on collision, and that's very dangerous. So let's move on to the reckless driving part.
Okay. Yeah, that would constitute like distracted driving too. That would fall under that also, because we're talking about texting. Texting attributes to it's just as bad or worse, you know, just as bad as DWIs. Texting. Did you know, Commander, that when you text, the average time that you look at your phone is 5 seconds.
Wow.
And when you look down, they say it's equivalent to driving a complete football field with your eyes closed.
Right.
So could you imagine? I mean, what can happen? So you know, it really increases your chances of getting involved in an accident. They say it's 6 times more than DWI when you're sitting there texting, because you're not even looking at the road. So it's very serious. And a distracted driving, though, this is not just texting and driving or talking on your phone. It could be applying your makeup, could be eating, could be drinking, looking at your radio.
And I'm just going to be straight honest with you. Many of the people that I see are very distracted because when they wake up, by the time they get on the roadway, that the vehicle actually is more like their office. They got the music going on. They're on the phone, texting their friends, holding meetings, putting makeup on or eating something on their way to work, rather than paying attention on the roadway. That's what your top priority is to get from point A to point B in as safely as you can. Now that's just you being distracted. What about defensive driving? What if you add more people who are distracted on the roadway? That means there's an accident waiting to happen. So
Yeah, because you can't count on that the other people are using defensive driving. They're probably doing the same thing because that's not,
the other thing is you talked about texting and driving. Now, is that against the law?
Yes, there is a House bill that was passed in 2017, and it is against the law to text and drive in the state of Texas now. And you
Okay.
can't be fined for that, so that is illegal.
Now, the other states, because our viewers, some of them are from Texas, some are from New York or Illinois, and some of the viewers are also from Canada. So you're gonna have please reach out or find out in your own respective state if texting and driving is against the law or not.
Yeah, and that's easy to do. They just Google it. You can Google it, find out the case law.
But nonetheless, we would not advise texting and driving, or doing anything else. Instead, just focusing on the roadway. Besides that, is there anything else that?
Yeah, aggressive driving falls into that, and aggressive driving would constitute anything like speeding, running red lights, following too close, swerving in between lanes, and that ends up turning into road rage a lot of times too, the way people drive, and it causes other situations, besides an accident.
Now, there are a couple of scenes I talked to you about earlier, and this is not just now the driver needs to pay attention, but also the other people can do something else to avoid a crash from occurring. For example, I was at a house of worship, and what the families were doing were that they were allowing their kids to play in the parking lot, and there's cars there. So one person got in the car, and he put his car in reverse and ran over a two-year-old child, and I mean it was just very, very sad to see that from happening because they all knew each other. So the question is, how could that been prevented? Well, one option was, please do not let your children play in the parking lots. So if you do go to grocery store or shopping, if you have small children, make sure they stay with you and they walk with you to inside the store. And when they come out of the store, they need to be controlled because kids, they tend to go different directions, and they can easily get hit by a car.
Well, that's funny you mentioned that because my daughter's 18 now, but when I was teaching her how to drive, that's one of the main points that I would communicate with her. That I don't know statistically how many accidents occur in the parking lots, but that's one of the most unsafe places to get in an accident because people they're not looking, they're driving fast. And I always reemphasize to her, reiterate that you drive very, very slow, very slow. You look everywhere.
Especially if you're backing out, you should almost be at a snail pace.
Yes.
Okay, meaning slowly stop, slowly stop, slowly stop again. Even though keep looking both ways, look at your rear view camera, and then continue to make your turn until you can get out of the parking space.
Yeah, because you don't need any misfortunate situations that happen to that family and that.
Now the other thing is you could do everything right, but if you use poor decision, you could end up getting into a crash or a fatality. I remember, this was once again very tragic event because this was a young female, and I still remember it was a Ford Taurus, a gray Ford Taurus, that she was driving as she was going over the freeway ramp. She lost control, and the vehicle, because she was speeding, the vehicle went off the roadway into the grass and hit the concrete barrier, and the car split in half. She did have a seatbelt on, but unfortunately, speed was a factor in that crash. So when you make those curves, you will see there's a posted speed limit, because what happens is those curves, if you go too fast, your car is going to start side slipping, and it can hit the guardrail and can go over. And I also have seen an 18-wheeler going too fast around that curve and end up jackknifing, and it was dangling over the freeway.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. If I could, I'd like to preface that with the speed limit. Yeah. Some people think, even my own children think sometimes that the speed limit you see, the 65 or 70 or 50, they think that's maybe the minimum you go, but no, to our viewers, that's the maximum amount of speed limit that you're supposed to go.
Under normal condition, if it's raining or the environment is not safe, you need to go slower.
Yes. But I don't think the public knows that, or maybe they don't realize it. They think, hey, that's the minimum, and they get impatient. But that's actually the maximum amount of speed you're supposed to be going.
So let's talk about. I think we already started hitting on the topic, but let's talk about how to avoid being in a crash. Okay. Let's talk about that.
That's a perfect topic, obviously, why we're here today. Yeah. So I like to start saying. And this is something that I talked to my daughter, something that I learned through the years, and I took classes. It's called the 2-second rule. And I, for our viewers, I promise you, teach this to your children and practice this yourself. But when you're pulling out, when you're at an intersection, because a lot of accidents happen, most of them at intersections, right? That's where a lot of prevalent. You take 2 seconds, look to your left for 1 second, then turn and look to your right for 1 second. That's all it takes. And that'll definitely, that's one of the things I definitely recommend.
The other thing I would recommend is when you're driving on the freeway, do not be close to another vehicle ahead of you.
Yes.
Because one of the most common crashes or the violation that we see is fail to control speed. That means you rear-ended another vehicle ahead of you. So make sure you keep a distance of at least 1 or 2 vehicles, and don't get upset when you create a distance. Somebody else cuts in front of you. But your job is to make sure you're defensive and you stay safe.
Yeah, I think it's one vehicle for every 10 miles per hour, right?
And also keep in mind of the weather conditions. Yeah. Just because the speed limit is 55 or 65, it's raining, you need to go slower so you can manage the vehicle, because at certain points, your vehicle can hydroplane. Okay, so that's something that you should keep in mind. So we're going to continue more on this. What we're going to do now is take a brief break, and then we'll continue to talk about motor vehicle crashes.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
Welcome back, viewers, and we will continue talking about motor vehicle crashes. Now, here's where we left off. How can you avoid being involved in a motor vehicle crash?
Well, real quick, I'll just let of course, don't drink and drive, because we all know, like you mentioned earlier, it impairs your reaction time, your judgment, your awareness. So that's another thing. There's a lot of other things people can do if you think you need to go out and you do drink. To avoid that. So
make sure you wear a seatbelt, keep a safe distance between the vehicle in front of you. Make sure make sure you check your tire pressure regularly.
Avoid distractions. Like texting, using your phone, putting on makeup, eating, drinking, distractions.
I'm glad you brought that up about distractions. So what we're going to do now is we're going to watch a quick video, and which actually will benefit the drivers. So we have a quick video we're going to watch, and then after that, we will talk about it.
You should be rewarded for the time you spend off your phone and focused on driving. We understand that bad habits are hard to break, which is why Safe to Save rewards you for not using your phone while driving. Here's how to use the app and how you can be rewarded for safe driving. Once you've downloaded the app, set the background to a photo that reminds you why you're choosing to put your phone down. You can upload this and make sure your other settings are correct by hitting the gear in the top right corner. The Safe to Save app automatically comes on in the background when you drive more than 10 miles per hour, giving you 2 points for every minute. If you touch your phone while driving, the app senses the distraction and stops adding points to your account. As you begin earning points, they'll show up on your profile page. From this page, you can also share the app with your friends through Facebook or text and receive more points if they join. When you're ready to redeem your points, select the business you'd like to redeem your points at. Then select the promotion, then show the reward to the cashier for them to accept it. Last but not least, compete with others to stay motivated to drive safe. Do this simply by organizing a new competition or join an existing one. Now you're ready to be rewarded for driving undistracted. Save money, save lives, safe to save.
Welcome back, viewers. I hope that you liked the video. Actually, this Safe to Save app, actually it helps you from being distracted. So every time that you go over the 10 miles per hour, you get 2 points. And then you can keep adding those points and then redeem them at many of the restaurants who are part of these programs. For example, McDonald's, Dairy Queen, Papa John's, Baskin and Robbins, get some ice cream, Carrabba's, and you can go on, who actually are partners in this program because they want to reduce distracted drivers. So I think it's a great app, and then they've been going all over.
Does it cost anything?
No, it's free. Just download it, and then and then you just start using it and getting your points. Yeah.
I definitely need to get that.
So let's talk about anyway. So this is a nonprofit organizations. What they do is they want to save lives. So they come up with different incentives, different ways of getting people to buy into it. Whatever the message they're trying to convey. But one thing we didn't mention was about teen drivers. So can you expand on that? What
Sure.
practice you did?
I can elaborate a little bit on the state of Texas because obviously we have viewers from all around the world. But the state of Texas, to prevent, because we all know insurance is very high, actually until they get to 25, especially for males here in Harris County. And one of the reasons they get in a lot of accidents. So we have a law in the state of Texas, 18 and below, they can't, not allowed to even talk on their phones.
Well, that's good. Yeah. The reason is because they don't have enough experience. Yes. They're still learning how to control a motor vehicle and be able to do multiple things at one time. And I think I agree with the law. Once they show maturity, then they should start. The law should start getting more relaxed. Okay, so we talked about the stats. We talked about the type of crashes that can occur. We talked about drinking and driving. But now let's go one step further. What if you are involved in a crash, okay? You're driving and boom, you're involved in a crash. What should you do, what you should not do? So let's walk the viewers with that process.
Okay. Well, one of the first things you want to do, obviously, is check yourself for injuries in your passenger and make sure everybody's okay. That's what the first thing you want to do.
I would say the first thing is stay calm.
Yes, well, that's very important
stay
too.
calm.
Yes.
Because people, when they get, I've seen people get into accidents and they just want to beat each other up. I've seen educated people and they're ready to fight and get into yelling contests. So the first thing is stay calm, make sure, like you said, make sure you're okay, and also talk to the other person, make sure they're okay. And then what's the next step? Well,
the next thing would be you can move the vehicles. You don't have to stay. Sometimes that's very unsafe to stay positioned, especially on the freeway or a busy highway.
I have seen that during rush hour, people involved in an accident, middle of the freeway, and they're just waiting for the officers to get there.
No, well, it's very unsafe. That's how you can get run over. You can have a chain reaction, and you have other cars coming from behind and hit you and cause more accidents and more fatality, even worse.
Right.
So it's good to be able to move the vehicles if they're able to be moved.
If they're drivable, nobody's hurt. Both of you have your driver's license insurance. What we recommend is if you want to take a picture, that's fine. Everybody has cell phones these days. Just move the vehicle safely off the road, off the freeway if possible, and please call us and we'll be more than happy to do the accident for you if it's a major crash. And then we'll talk about our policy about how we investigate crashes as well.
Well, you're exactly right, Commander. That's another thing is take pictures because everybody has a cell phone. So before you move it, I'd recommend, take some pictures of where they were positioned, how they were positioned, and the damage of the vehicles, and then move the vehicles. And they don't want to forget, if somebody is hurt though, to call emergency services, call 911.
And plus it depends too, because if the other person is intoxicated, do you really want him getting back in the vehicle?
No, it's not a good idea.
But that's a judgment call you're gonna have to make some good decisions. You cannot just say. It also depends on the location, how you should handle it.
Yes.
If you want to move it or not. But if it's on not a busy thoroughfare, I mean that's easy. You can move into.
Correct.
Get off the roadway. What about exchanging information? I've seen people, they don't want to exchange information. And what does the law say if you were involved in a crash?
Well, you have to give them your information. So that's and if they don't want to, like you said, don't get in an argument or any kind of fight or disturbance and make the situation worse. Just call the police, and that's what we do. We'll come out there and handle it, and we'll be able to exchange information.
But you're supposed to exchange your driver license, your insurance,
Correct.
and that way.
Yes.
What we recommend is that if it's a minor crash, like for example, bumper to bumper, both of your driver license, you have both of your insurance, then you can just exchange information and contact your insurance company. Because some departments actually they don't investigate minor crashes. They may refer you to go to a police station because we're limited on our resources on patrol, and we have high priority calls that need to be addressed.
Right.
So that's why I would definitely check with your local police department. What is their policy when it comes to investigating minor crashes?
Yeah, because that kind of brings us to our policy that we had a new, a state law that came out. There's certain criteria that we, as the Houston Police Department, do not have to investigate minor accidents. And then you're absolutely correct. And one would be if the vehicles are drivable, if both drivers have license and they have insurance, and the damage is $1,000 or less. And and they have proof of insurance. Like I said, we won't come out there, and do the accident.
And the other thing is, if you do get a citation from the police officer, please do not get into an argument. Okay? So you will have your day in court, and you can explain to the judge why you believe that you were not at fault for the crash. And I've seen that many times. The people, they just don't want to admit that they caused the crash, because generally nobody wants to get into a crash.
Right.
Nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to get into a crash today. But it happens. But all I'm saying is, please be professional with the officer. Let him do his investigation, and if you do get a citation, that can be handled in the court.
Well, the viewers need to understand it's not a plea of guilt. When you get that, when you sign that doesn't mean you're guilty. You still get to go to court on the court day and plead your case, or have a trial by jury or trial by judge and plead your case.
Yeah, the most common citations that I've seen is fail to control speed. Those are rear end collisions, or backing not in safety.
Right.
I have seen making a left turn when the roadway was not clear. So what happens is, in those left turns, for example, there's a three lane road. The first lane may give you the right of way. The second lane may give you the right of way, but you still need to clear the third lane, and that's where the crash end up happening. And then most likely you will be at fault because you didn't clear all three lanes safely, because that other vehicle had the right of way.
Right. And don't forget failure to control speed. That's pretty popular.
Yes, the failure to control speed. The other thing I want to talk about briefly touch upon is the scams that do happen when you're involved in a crash. So what if it's a major crash and you need to get transported to the hospital? What should you do?
Well, the citizens should be very conscientious of who's towing the vehicle and how it's being towed. And nobody should ever sign a tow slip without it being complete. Okay, and secondly, they should know how much they're going to be charged too, so it doesn't change later on. And thirdly, like I said, they make sure everything's filled out, and that they have an option. The citizens actually have a choice before the officer arrives, and if AAA's there or their preferred record drivers, they can actually move the scene. If not, obviously we know here, speaking in Houston,
yes.
we have to move the vehicle for safety reasons, and the officer is going to have to move it.
So what the viewer needs to realize is that once the officer gets to the scene, it becomes a police scene.
Yes.
So then we have to fill out a tow slip, and that vehicle will go to a storage lot where the fee has a fixed rate with the city. But if you decide that you want to have the vehicle taken somewhere else to your own mechanic, then you're going to have to pay the record, whatever the fee that he's requesting. Okay? But here's the scam that sometimes happens. Is that record driver, I'm not saying all record drivers, they may say that, hey, I know a good dealer, he'll take care of your car, he'll get you a rental car, and the record driver will make some very good promises, and he'll say, all you have to do is just sign right here. So when you sign that paper, and the vehicle goes automatically to that storage lot that you don't know anything about, and you took the word of a record driver, and you signed that paper, what you're really doing is giving them the consent to make repairs or to make whatever decision they need to do about getting that vehicle fixed. So next day when you go try to get the vehicle, and they may say, well, it's going to be such and such amount of money to get your vehicle back because we did this fee, or we did this, so we're going to charge you this fee or that fee. They killed you with fees. So that's one of the scams they do is they get you to sign some document that you're not familiar with, and do some repairs, which you cannot verify if that was done or not. And then the insurance company may not cover it. Then you have then you have to do it on your own.
And unfortunately, if the citizen doesn't pay it, they can put a mechanic's lien on it and keep your vehicle and sell it.
Yes.
So
What I would highly recommend is that if you are going to listen to a record driver, wherever the vehicle you want to wherever you want to go, just verify the information and be very careful for signing blank papers or any kind of paper before reading it thoroughly.
Right. And I'd like to say real quick too, back to the accidents. If they believe, if your viewers believe they need here in Texas, in Houston, if they need any of the police to call, if it's not an emergency, that they can call 713-884-3131.
In Houston, we also have a tow and go program, which is free. So there's no charge to the motorist. If your vehicle is if you're on the freeway for whatever reason, it has a flat, you have a flat tire, or the road breaks down, the record driver can move it off the road for you for free. The reason why we do that is because we want to make sure the traffic is moving smoothly, to free up the congestion from traffic jams. At the same time, to get the motorists off the roadway, because that way they don't get into a crash.
Yeah, keep them safe. It's for the motorist benefit too, definitely.
So I think we covered a lot today. So let's do a quick recap. Is there anything else you think we should talk about? Let the viewers.
Well, again, if they do need to file a crash and it's not something that police are going to come to, I recommend the viewers, again, for the state of Texas, is to go to the website www.tex.com to pull up the forms, and they can fill the forms out.
There's one thing I do want to mention. If you're involved in a minor crash, because it's a low priority call, you may have to wait for a while, because of the the other high priority calls that take higher I guess importance priority. I just want to say thank you so much for coming today, and we talked a lot about the crashes, how they occur, what the viewers can do to prevent themselves from getting into a crash. If they are involved in a crash, please stay calm, check your own injuries and the other person, call the police, so that way we can come and do an investigation. But if it's a minor crash and everybody's okay, both parties have driver license insurance, please exchange the information and contact the insurance companies. Please, please, please do not drink and drive. Do you have any last few words you want to say to the viewers?
No, if you definitely need the police, be sure to call. We'll come out there, even if you're in question whether it's something we need to respond to or not. So I want your viewers to know. Again, here in Houston, I can't attest to everywhere, but we're there to help and we're there to serve, and we're more than happy to come out there and help you.
Well, we just want to say thank you so much for watching this episode about motor vehicle crashes, and in the future we will continue to bring in interesting topics that you can benefit from. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green right outside Henry County. 911 dispatch.
321 status.